Hey guys, welcome back to the Bucket Think Tank for the Life of Scrooge Redux, Chapter 9, The Billionaire of Dismal Downs. So, this is kind of an emotional story. There's a lot of sort of a sad reality to this one. And at the same time, there's some good humor. If you recall, when we last left off, Scrooge was in the Klondike, becoming the legend of legends of that time period. He became the king of the Klondike. And we played Davy Crockett as the theme. Because I couldn't really think of anything that would have really hit that without feeling a bit out of place. But, but at the end of that, he comes across real gold, the size of a goose egg nugget. And that's where we left off. All right, so where are we now? Well, this is actually one of my favorite ways as to how the story is told, which is through letters. This time, though, where it's a letter from Scrooge to, well, his family. It says, "From then on I was rich. The goose egg nugget alone made him the wealthiest Argonaut in the Klondike. It was only the beginning because there was more and more gold coming from his claim at White Agony Creek. So much so that he was finally able to pay off Soapy Slick and got his receipt after giving Soapy a bit of the business. The thing is, he never slowed down after that, all right? He froze his fingers to the bone, digging more nugs from White Agony Creek, and he never spent any cent of it in the honky tonks or the saloons, didn't gamble, didn't go to the casinos, didn't go to any, and just kept it going. And then 2 years later, he had $1 million. And I'm like, okay, it's a good place to be, good place to be. He had actually, by that time, his claim in White Agony Creek had sort of pettered out, so he had a last cache of nuggets in the case of emergency and closed it down for good. He originally planned to settle down somewhere, but circumstances soon made him decide otherwise, and he bought the Bank of Whitehorse and became a businessman. All right. And so, like, he invested, he used the money to make more money, and there were more gold strikes in Alaska too. So he would inspect claims, and like, hey, he'll finance for like say 50% of the gold, and he did seem to have a bit of a bias, and I like this bias. He's gonna hire busted sourdoughs to work the claim for him. Scrooge's like, okay, well at this bank we cater to people who do their own work. His rate is 95%, so 50% to him and 45 to the workman. It goes next, and at this point, Scrooge is really sort of finding his stride in the 20 years since he left, which means at this point he is 33. He's 33 years old. He found he could master any business he tried his hand at, whether it be lumber, shipping, fish oil, lemonade stands. Of course, he even broke down and he bought a stove for the office to keep warm. And now, after all that, he's revealed he's coming home to stay. And so everyone's gathered to greet Scrooge. We see Fergus, who's really showing his age. I love that little bit. Like we see the wrinkles. We'll see that he's gotten thinner. Hortense and Matilda have grown up looking lovely, and so the entire village has turned out to welcome Scroogey, and turns out that this is because Scroogey is the last male member of the clan that founded the village over 1,000 years ago. So they come in, and here's Scrooge in rags, like, hey, or do you know how much the fare is from Glasgow to here? All right, he had to haul his cargo. What's going on? Why is this? Well, that's because Scrooge has to show out. They're like, yes, the richest duck in the Highlands, greeting one and all, return in triumph. He's met with, well, a classical Scottish Highland greet. Who want ye over to your robber baron? You stuck up mugwump thinking to come back here? Traipse into the world? Who needs you, Mr. Big Mucky Muck the Highlands when they're good enough for you, eh? Oh, where have I seen this before? Scrooge does not take this well. Like, I'll buy this whole town and throw you on a collective here. They're like, oh, how dare he? Such a tantrum for no reason at all. To think we came to meet such a rude person. And they left. Fergus acts like, well, what's going on, man? Scrooge, like, I get that everywhere I go. People are jealous of my success. They all want a free ride. Fergus is like, that's a terrible thing to say, but this is sort of swept under the rug. And, they're like, look how cool he looks, like our brother, the billionaire. All right. Also, again, look at Fergus. I love it. He's now walking with the aid of a cane. His legs, again, he's gotten thinner. So we're actually seeing the passage of time. Not only that, Hortense and Matilda are taller from when we last saw them. All works out. So she was like, of course I'll look good. All right, look, I deserve the best. And man in the rummage shop says like, "Hey, must have cost you pretty penny." Like, nah, some dude gave this to me for free to boost his reputation. It's the rich people treatment. Like, you know what? I'll trade you this old broadcloth for it. They're like, yeah, why would I wear that? I'm a billionaire. Pooh. Ich. I'll toss in 5 quid. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I bring to you the origin of Scrooge's outfit. Bless you, Rosa. Bless you, because this is brilliant. This is brilliant. Because by default, as a billionaire, Scrooge would wear this kind of suit. It looks amazing. It looks great. But it doesn't look like Scrooge. Of course, Scrooge wouldn't pay for it. He got it for free, so of course he would wear it. But then someone offers him a replacement suit and 5 quid. There we go. So, as they head to the castle, Scrooge wants to first um, pay a visit to his mother. And I love this scene. I loved it ever since I was a kid and saw it. Scrooge, effectively, the saddest thing about King of the Klondike was that Scrooge found out his mother passed away while he was being held hostage. While he was basically a at the mercy of Soapy Slick, in what should have been a very quiet, intimate moment, as you realize, oh, my mother's dead. It instead becomes the fuel to save his life. And even more so, before that, Soapy was reading letters written from his mother uh, to him about how much she believes and how much she loves him. And then to find all that out, this had to be on his mind for so long. Like, okay, like I got to keep doing this, but first thing I do when I get home is I'm going to see my mom, and I love it. I love it. Like all the jokes aside, everything. This is one of the most human moments ever in all of duck history. All right. And I would not change a single bit. Actually, there's one thing I would change. I'd have make this a full page, a full, like, I wouldn't do these other two panels here. I would just keep that there, like, oh, because it's so good. So the next morning, Scrooge's like, he has to go into the town to see about office space because he wants to make this the center of his soon-to-be empire. Like Scrooge has an idea of what he wants, and he wants this place to be it. But the problem is Scrooge is not sort of welcome by the by the townspeople. Every time they try to tell him like, swaggering, you be a big hot tycoon, he calls him a peasant, and they just go like, what a giveaway. It's like he doesn't get it. And so he meets a young man and says, yeah, we're not all like that. Like, it's fine. But what's going on here is the Highland Games being an annual festival for local sports and traditions. And Scrooge's like, that's what I need to boost my image, all right, to prove I belong here. So it's like, okay, what's your name, lad? Scott and Terry. I'm like, okay. He needs a trainer to show him how the games work. And like, could I hire you? Like 1 farthing per hour. And so while he goes to register, Scotty goes to get him a proper McDuck tartan so he can look the part. And one would say, like, what's the point of this? Well, in addition to sort of showing that he belongs here, showing that he is, hey, look, despite what happened, I'm still one of you. All right, I was born here. I spent my childhood here, and I want to come and build here. I want to, you know, this is where I want to spend the rest of my life. He's not. He has an image problem. He has a problem still looking seem like an outsider. So not only is it important that he plays these games, so he knows how the customs. He also needs to look the part. He needs to look like he's one of them. So the hammer toss. All right, so he goes in, and and it goes far. It goes wide. The problem is, he didn't. And to be fair, the judges were super excited. All right. um, his wrist got caught in the strap, and so his actual weight was a quarter inch, the worst since Skinny Mackenzie in 1872. So he got 0 points. Then he decides sheep shearing. Okay, and who's the person in charge of the sheep? Argus Whiskerville, Scrooge's not oldest enemy, but a family enemy nonetheless. All right, so what happens is they go in and Scrooge shears it perfectly. The problem is though didn't he didn't his precision was kind of off, and while he sheared that entire sheep, it was brilliant. He also sheared Argus Whiskerville of his hair, his beard, and the top of his shirt. Ugh. Then he tries fishing, all right, and he got a lot of fish, but the problem is he didn't do it with a fishing pole. He learned his style from grizzly bears. I'm like, okay, I see the problem here. I see the problem here. Then he tries poetry. Of course. I'm sorry, even then I was like, Scrooge and poetry. I can't think of Scrooge with poetry. Rosa will later prove us wrong that he does have this, but right now he decides to go with something fancy with ladies. There once was a barmaid gnome, and a gold miner lonely for home. He had the breath of a moose, and she couldn't get loose, so she pulled out her knife, and the ladies fainted. Oh, Dios mío! I guess it was too rough hewn for the locals. So the next game is golf, the most beloved sport in Scotland. All right, and so uh, he swipes it. Whack! Huh? Huh? Pluck! Lands in the muck. All right. The problem is though when the total opposite direction that that he was supposed to go, and it right into the Grimpen Mere. And so, what's going on? Well, Scrooge got some bonus points because, well, anybody so cheap as to wade into a quicksand bog after one golf ball shows the spirit of a classic Highlander. And so, that gives him a grand total of 5 points. And this is where the realization comes in. Scrooge is sort of forced to realize that, everything here is still stuck in the past. And it's not that it's a bad thing, but it shows how little he belongs here. Nothing has changed since he left, and which means probably nothing has changed since before he was born. You know, anything he builds here will be met with hesitation. It probably won't work out. His life is tied to the future with progress. If he stays here, his investments will sink and be like the golf ball that was in the bog, you know? So that forced him to make a decision. In the Klondike, Scrooge bought some land from an out of luck prospector that in a place called Duckburg. All right. Um, the girls are more actually interested in the lock of hair that they found, which belonged to Glitter and Goldie, and they keep teasing about like, oh, he's got a girlfriend, he's got a girlfriend, and Fergus is the one that brings it all back to focus. Like, look, are you saying you want us to move to Duckburg? You're like, yes, yes. And the girls are super excited. They can go like cowboys and Indians and cowboys and skyscrapers and cowboys. And Scrooge's like, okay, could Scotty, you're an honest lad. Could I hire you to be the caretaker of our family estate? He's like, yeah, that's great. No problem. I'll do it. So everything seems fine, but Fergus seems quiet. He says he's too old and too weary to move it again. This is his home now. To be fair, Fergus looks very old. He's probably a bit sick to some extent. He probably wouldn't survive the journey, depending on how bad his health is. He's like, well, we can't leave you all here. I'm like, no, I got young Scott who will be here, and maybe Sir Quackley will watch over me as well. And then we get another great moment. It says, Scrooge, you take your sisters to a new life in America. You've outgrown the life I've known. And Scrooge's like, but like, no buts. Just promise me you'll always be true to yourself and know I'll always be proud of you. He's like, yes, sir, Pop, sure. It's a great moment because this is rarely something Scrooge has had to deal with. He's always sort of lived with the idea that, family's gonna be right there. All right, I'm gonna get this money, I'm gonna make a name for myself, I'll come right back. And then his mother dies, and so he's like, okay, what do I do now? So I'm just gonna go back and it's time, I've got the money, I can build a life here. And then it turns out he can't build the life he wants here. So he's like, okay, I'll take the family with me. All right, it'll be great. Then his dad says, I can't go. All right. And so he's just sort of, this is the most passive Scrooge has ever been because there's nothing he can do about it. And he just has to make this promise to his dad. The girls are upset, like, no, 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 no crying. We'll make this happy occasion a party that will echo the halls for years to come, and so they do. All right, the goodbyes and farewell songs of Old Lang Syne drift across the dismal downs and far into the night. Early the next morning, Scrooge and the girls decide to leave while Fergus is still asleep. But as they look up, they see, hey, Pa's up there. He's waving to them. Okay, but there's someone else up there. They can't quite make it up. Matilda says, it's Scotty. Who else could it be? And they drive off, or they ride off. Fergus watches, and it turns out the person with him isn't Scotty. It's Downey, Scrooge's mom. And Fergus says, do you think we did right by Scroogey? down. He says, "Oh, he has a few lessons yet to learn, dear, but I have good authority that he'll turn out all right." The best authority, well, like I guess our job is well and truly done. Fergus, who's gotten younger, if you remember how he looked before. I was like, "You're Sir Quackley, right?" Yes, I, Fergus. I've waited our meeting for a long while, but I'm glad you took your time. You're like this way, and there's lots of folks waiting to see you. Some are old friends, and they go off through the wall of the castle as the comic ends. I love this chapter, and coming back to it was so great as a story. Like, oh my god, the fact that there can be a time when you come home and realize you can't live the life you want to live here. You've outgrown your home as much as you don't want to admit it. All right, Scrooge thinks, like, I just put on this good show, put up best foot forward, but everything about this town is just not him. It's not what he needs. He has to go to America. He needs to go to America to get anything done for his future. And the downside of that is he has to leave his home. And of course, the death of Fergus, and of course, in addition to the death of his mother, I can only imagine how it felt because Scotty would have written to them like, "Hey, Fergus passed away that morning," and so what? That means they saw him for the last. So they saw him one last time. I think that's great. But overall, it had to have been a real tearjerker to read that. So, in terms of the 87 canon, Scrooge's parents are presumed dead because, well, nothing happens with them. DuckTales 87 has the story Once Upon a Time. This story reveals, well, we've talked about it before, Scrooge's parents, McMama and McPapa. And I kind of hate them. And to be fair, they're not bad characters. They just don't do anything outside of tell Scrooge what he needs to do. Go to America, go make a fortune, work smarter, not harder. These aren't bad lessons, but they just sort of are there to point out, well, Scrooge had to have parents, so he goes off. And in the episode, he sends money, but they don't know how to do it because they send him American money and they don't know what to do with it, and they just kind of, I guess, stay there. Nothing happens. Scrooge never goes back, never acts like, "Hey, are you coming down or not?" He never goes to see them. I think this was generally a wasted opportunity, but to the 87 series credit, it was mostly going off of Barks' story. And for Barks' story, he's never actually revealed Scrooge's parents. They were just immaterial to whatever story he wanted to tell at the time. D17, I have a mixed bag, and it's because of stories like Billionaire Dismal Downs and The Life of Scrooge that I don't like them being alive. All right, I granted I get the sort of idea. If you read Billionaire Dismal Downs, you sort of get why Scrooge's dad is the way he is. He's just acting like the townspeople. In other words, this is pretty much, I guess, a Scottish personality trait. All right, but it just feels sort of weird. So Scrooge effectively has everything. He has his family, he has his money. There is no real edge to this Scrooge as a character. Like even the fact that Scrooge will find out from Fergus, "Hey, I'm the one that got you the dime." All right, that was something that was never supposed to be told. Even later on, Matilda will never tell Scrooge how he got the number one dime, what role their father played in his life. Never tells him. All right, never finds out. The idea, like, okay, hey, they're dead, and well, not dead, they're immortal. All right, as long as they stay in Castle McDuck, they will live forever. I'm like, okay. So at some point, Scrooge will go to Castle McDuck to live out his life forever. I don't, I don't really get it. I don't even like it for that part. It feels like there's no stakes to this. Scrooge just lived his life, so Scrooge gets everything. All right, the only thing he doesn't get, I guess, is Hortense. That's pretty much it because Matilda's alive. Scrooge gets to have a relationship with his family. All right, totally ignoring the fact that one of the best things about Scrooge is the fact that this did cost him his family in one form or another. The the kilt that Scrooge wears was first seen in Karl Barks's Hound of the Whiskervilles. Oh, actually, that was the only time it was seen. It was seen in the 87 cartoon, in Curse of Count McDuck, and of course, Once Upon a Time. The mention of the broadcloth jacket coat that Scrooge wears was that time and date was introduced in the Golden Fleecing. So the mention of Sir Quackly McDuck, Scotty McTerrier, Sir Swamphole, these are names mentioned in Walt Disney's Donald Duck: The Old Castle's Secret. Also, fun fact: this story, The Billionaire of Dismal Downs, is the first and only real appearance of Scotty McTerry, because as in The Old Castle Secret, the Scotty we meet is actually someone pretending to be Scotty, pointing out that Scotty died years before this story. A lot of references to Back in the Klondike here, naming the fact that Scrooge is in the Klondike and is leaving. Uh, and Only a Poor Old Man, we get reference to the fact that Scrooge kept a lot of his money and didn't waste it on any of the honky tonks or saloons. And in King of the Golden River, Scrooge mentions that he uh, bought the Bank of Whitehorse. So we have a lot of fun references here, a lot of points to Rosa, because this is what Rosa does, and I love him for it. When I came back to this series, I was thinking that in reality, the pinnacle of Scrooge's character will be found in chapters 11 and 12. I really thought that. But I think I was just too in love with 11 and 12. Well, there's my Doctor Who preference right there. Um, but I think it would be a mistake to only look at those two stories as any source of having any real sense of character merit. This whole series has been nothing but a dive into Scrooge's character. We've seen his character not just gain inspiration, but we've seen him at his low points, his high points, and soon we'll see him at his lowest point. We'll see, I think, character progression done right. But here we saw something a bit more tender, a bit more realistic, which is coming home and finding out you've outgrown your house. It reminded me of that scene in Happy Days, and I couldn't find it. I really tried looking for it online. I couldn't find it. I kept finding the end result. When Richie and Potsy come back from the war, and everyone expects everything to be the same. Richie doesn't want it to be the same. All right, he's back in this room, still surrounded by Howdy Doody, and everyone's complaining that he has a mustache. He's like, I don't want to go back to that. I can't go back to that. All right, so he's like, I'm going off to California. I'm going to basically be Ron Howard, because yeah. So that's this too, but it's more the fact that Scrooge is trying to blend in. He's trying to make this work to find out that he ultimately can't. And it's sad, it's somber, it's realistic, and beautiful all at once. Oh, love it. So anyway, I have gushed enough over the Billionaire of Dismal Downs. So what did you guys think about it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? I hope you like it, because I know you've all got top quality taste. I know you do. Um, what was your favorite part? So what's been your favorite part so far? Um, I always liked the Billionaire of Dismal Downs. Um, Fergus has become my favorite character in this entire story. As much as I love Scrooge, he's the biggest Scrooge fanboy, and I think it's very appropriate. Also, I have to say this. I have to say this, and I don't think anyone else has said it, although they probably have. I'm not special. Let's see here. Whoop. Almost there. Almost there. Almost there. Almost there. Whoop. 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 The scene where Fergus is comforting Scrooge, he looks a bit like Don Rosa. He does. He does. And it's sort of appropriate because this Scrooge is Don Scrooge. This is the Scrooge that he created for this story. It's not radically different from Box's Scrooge in my mind, but this is Rose's story, his fanboy project. It reminds me what Grant Morrison said, like, look, uh, give your character a birth, a death, and go from there. Make it your own. And I do love the sort of farewell that Rosa gives to Scrooge. Granted, he's got 3 more stories in this arc to go, at least. But there is something to be said about that. Or not, maybe I'm just thinking too much into it. So anyway, leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'll catch you all later. This is Bucket Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching as always. May your fandom serve you well.